My name is Augustus Powell, and I'm 70 years old. My daughter Gabby and her husband Ryan invited me to dinner. They said they were worried about me, that I seemed forgetful. I was in my bedroom tying my one good necktie when my phone buzzed on the dresser. It was a text from my lawyer, Amir. 4 words, "Call me immediately." I dialed his number, my fingers suddenly stiff. "Amir," I said, "it's Gus. What's wrong?" Amir's voice was tight, urgent. "Gus, don't go to that dinner. They just filed a petition. They're trying to have you declared mentally incompetent and take control of your house." I hung up the phone. I looked at the picture of my late wife Beatrice on the mantel. They thought I was a senile old fool. They didn't know I owned the building Ryan used to work in, and they certainly didn't know I was the one who'd been secretly paying their mortgage for the last 6 months. They were about to find out. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know in the comments where you're listening to this story from. And please hit like and subscribe if you believe that respect for your elders is non-negotiable. I live in a small, quiet apartment in Decatur, Georgia. It's the same place my wife Beatrice and I moved into after we got married 45 years ago. It's simple. The armchair in the corner, the one with the worn fabric on the arms, we bought that together in 1985. The air smells like old books and the lemon polish I use on the wood floors every Saturday. It's a quiet life, a humble life. At least that's what I let my family believe. I was standing in that quiet living room holding a small gift-wrapped package. It was an old leather-bound book, a first edition history of Atlanta. I'd found it at a little shop on Ponce de Leon Avenue. I was planning to give it to Gabby at dinner. I looked at the photograph of Beatrice on the mantel. Her smile still lit up the room even 10 years after she was gone. "Beatrice, girl," I whispered, adjusting the ribbon on the gift. "I hope Gabby likes this book. She's been worried about me." I sighed. It was true. For the last 2 months, both Gabby and her husband Ryan had been calling more. At first I thought it was nice, but their concern felt off. "Dad, are you sure you're eating enough?" Dad, Ryan and I were thinking, maybe this apartment is just too much for you to handle alone. "Dad, did you remember to pay your light bill? We can automate that for you." I didn't feel forgetful. I didn't feel frail. But I'm 70. I just figured, maybe I'm just getting old, huh? Maybe this is what happens. You start to slow down and your kids start to worry. I finished tying my tie. I checked my reflection in the hall mirror. An old man, yes, but a sharp old man. I was ready to leave. Then my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I walked over and picked it up. The screen was bright. A text message. My heart didn't just skip a beat. It felt like it stopped cold. The text was from Amir Hassan Esquire, my lawyer, my friend. Amir has handled my affairs for 20 years. He's a man of deliberation. He sends emails. He schedules calls. He does not send frantic all-caps text messages at 5:30 p.m. on a Friday. I stared at the 4 words on the screen, "Call me immediately." My hand was trembling just a little as I pressed his name. The phone rang once, twice. "Augustus," Amir answered. He didn't even say hello. His voice was tight, professional, and full of an urgency I'd never heard from him before. "Amir, it's Gus," I said, my own voice suddenly sounding thin. "I got your text. What's wrong? I'm going to Gabby's for dinner." There was a heavy pause on the other end. "Gus," Amir said, and his voice was cold. "I'm glad I caught you. Do not go to that dinner. I'm serious. Do not leave your apartment. Lock your door." A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. "What are you talking about, Amir? Lock my door? It's just Gabby. She's worried about me." "No, Gus," Amir said, his words sharp, precise. "They're not worried. They're making a move. 30 minutes ago, my office received a courtesy notification from the DeKalb County Probate Court. Your daughter, Gabrielle Powell Sullivan, and your son-in-law, Ryan Sullivan, have filed an emergency petition for conservatorship." The word hung in the air. Conservatorship. It sounded alien. Something you read about in the news, something that happens to celebrities who lose their minds, not to a retired man in Decatur. "Conservatorship," I repeated, my throat dry. "You mean, like, guardianship, like they're trying to take over?" "That's exactly what I mean, Gus," Amir said. "They are petitioning the court to have you declared mentally incompetent and to be appointed your legal guardians. I had to reach out and grab the back of my dining chair. The one Beatrice always said was mine. My legs felt weak. They think I'm crazy, I whispered. They think I'm senile. It's worse than that, Gus. Amir's voice continued pulling me from the fog of shock. They didn't just file. They filed with exhibits. They submitted a mental health assessment from a Dr. Evelyn Reed. It claims you are suffering from, and I'm quoting the document right here, significant cognitive decline and an inability to manage personal or financial affairs. They are claiming you are a danger to yourself. A danger? My voice rose. What danger? I just had my physical with Dr. Adams last month. He said I had the heart of a 50-year-old. They claim, Amir said, and I could hear him rustling papers, that you left the gas stove on all night last week. They say Ryan had to come over and smelled it from the hallway, that you could have blown up the whole building. The fog of shock vanished. It was replaced by something else. Something cold and hard. Rage. The gas stove, I said, my voice dropping to a low growl. Amir, I haven't had a gas stove in 20 years. My building is all electric. There was a sharp intake of breath on Amir's end. Gus, are you absolutely sure? Amir, I'm looking at my electric stove right now, I snapped. I told Ryan that last month he came over and said he smelled a leak. He offered to check the connections for me. I told him then, son, this is an electric stove. There's nothing to leak. He just laughed and said I must be confused. My God, Amir murmured. He wasn't confused. He was planting the seed. He was building his case. I started to pace my small kitchen. The gift for Gabby was still on the counter. The old book. It felt like a prop from a stupid play. The old man was gone. The man who had built an empire from nothing was awake. Why, Amir? I demanded. Why would they do this? They know I'm fine. They know it's a lie. The petition answers that question too, Amir said, his voice grim. It includes an immediate request for authorization to liquidate assets to cover long-term care. He paused. I could hear him turn a page. Specifically, Gus, they are asking for the court's permission to sell your house. I stopped pacing. The house. My house. The one I still owned even though I lived in the apartment. The one Beatrice and I raised Gabby in. My mind flashed back. All those worried comments from the past 2 months. Gabby's voice sweet as honey. Dad, this apartment is nice, but that big house, it's just sitting empty. It's such a burden for you to maintain. Ryan's voice so helpful, so practical. Dad, we found this wonderful assisted living facility, Sunset Haven. It's more like a resort. They have nurses 24/7. You wouldn't have to worry about a thing. Ryan again, just last week. Dad, do you keep the deed to the house here? You really shouldn't. It's not safe in an apartment. What if there's a fire or a break-in? You should let us hold it for you. Put it in our safe. I thought it was concern. I thought it was love. It wasn't. It was reconnaissance. It was a script. They were checking my defenses, probing for weakness. They want the house. I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. They do more than want it, Gus, Amir replied. They've already had it appraised. The petition lists its market value at $1.5 million. They're not wasting time. $1.5 million. That's what this was about. That's what I was worth to them. Not a father, not a grandfather, a price tag. Amir, I said, my voice steady now, all the trembling gone. This dinner tonight, how do you know it's a trap? Because of Exhibit C, Amir said. It's an affidavit from Ryan. It states, we have arranged a family dinner this evening where a licensed notary public, Ms. Peterson, will be present as an independent third party to witness my father-in-law's agitated and confused state when we present him with options for his care. Gus, they're not inviting you to dinner. They're staging an intervention. They're bringing a witness to document your insanity when you refuse to be put in a home. They're going to use your anger against you. I looked at the phone. My own daughter. My son-in-law. Gus, Amir asked. Gus, are you there? I'm filing an immediate motion to dismiss. I'll call the judge. We'll fight this. I looked at the picture of Beatrice. I looked at the old, worn armchair. And then I looked at my own reflection in the dark kitchen window. They were expecting a confused, frail old man. They were expecting a victim. No, I said. My voice was quiet, but it filled the room. No, Gus, what do you mean, no? I mean, no, we're not filing a motion to dismiss. Not yet, I said. We're not going to be on the defensive. We're going to attack. Gus, this isn't one of your old business deals. This is probate court. They've already filed. Amir, I interrupted, and the steel that built my life was back in my voice. You investigate Dr. Evelyn Reed. I want to know everything. I want to know where she lives, what she eats for breakfast, and who paid her for that fake report. I want her medical license, Amir. I want it on your desk by Monday. Okay. Okay, Gus. I can do that. But what about the dinner? What are you going to do? I looked at the clock. 5:45 p.m. Dinner was at 7:00. They're expecting a senile old fool, I said, a cold smile touching my lips for the first time. They're not going to be disappointed. I'm going to give them the performance of a lifetime. I hung up the phone. I stood in the silence of my apartment, the old book still in my hand. The trap was set. But they had made one fatal mistake. They forgot who they were dealing with. They forgot who I am. I picked up my phone again. I dialed Gabby's number. It was time to change the plan. Not my plan. Theirs. Gabby, sweetheart, I said, forcing a slightly frail, confused tremble into my voice. It's Dad. I'm so glad you called for dinner, but honey, I'm so sorry. I don't think I can make it all the way to your house in Alpharetta. My legs are just feeling so weak tonight. I heard her let out a little sigh of frustration before she covered it with fake concern. Oh, Dad, are you okay? See, this is what we were worried about. Ryan, Dad says his legs are weak, I heard her whisper to him. She came back on the line. Don't worry, Dad. We'll just come to you. We'll pick up food and come to your apartment. Oh, no, honey, I said, playing my part. I couldn't ask you to do that, and you have your guest coming. It's no trouble. Ryan's voice suddenly boomed on the speakerphone. We'll be there by 7, Dad, and we'll bring Ms. Peterson with us. She's an old friend who wanted to meet you. It'll be perfect. Oh, I said, my voice full of fake relief. Oh, bless you, children. That's so kind. I'll see you at 7 then. I hung up the phone. The smile vanished from my face. Perfect, I whispered to the empty room. They weren't just bringing dinner. They were bringing the notary. They were bringing the witness. They were bringing the trap right to my front door. I had exactly 1 hour and 15 minutes. I walked over to the old heavy desk where I kept my papers. I didn't open the main drawer. I pressed a small hidden panel on the side. A false bottom clicked open. Inside, beneath a stack of old photos of Beatrice, was a slim, modern satellite phone and a small, hard ledger. They thought I lived on a $2,000 a month pension. They thought my entire world was this little 2-bedroom apartment. I picked up the satellite phone. I dialed a number in Zurich, Switzerland. Mr. Hassan's office, a crisp voice answered. This is Augustus Powell, I said. Code 1954. Get me Amir, now. I gripped the phone tighter. Why, Amir? Why are they doing this? Amir took a deep breath. I could hear him shuffling papers again on his desk. Gus, this is the reason. The petition wasn't just for guardianship. It was filed with an immediate request, an emergency motion. They are asking the court for authorization to liquidate assets for the purposes of securing long-term care. My mind was blank. Liquidate assets? What assets? I live in a rented apartment. No, Gus, you don't, Amir said quietly. You live in the apartment. You own the house in Decatur, the one you raised Gabby in, the one you've been letting sit empty. The house. Beatrice's house. They want the house, I whispered. They want to sell it, Gus, Amir corrected me, his voice hard. The petition specifically names the Decatur property, and it gets worse. They're not just asking to sell it, they're asking to move you. They've already selected a facility. It's called Sunset Haven Care Center. Sunset Haven. I almost laughed. It sounded like the name of a cheap motel where old people go to die. They weren't just trying to steal from me. They were trying to erase me, to lock me away in some beige room with linoleum floors and the smell of disinfectant, also they could cash in on my life's work. The house Beatrice and I built, the walls she painted, the garden she planted, they wanted to sell it. The rage I felt in my kitchen wasn't hot. It didn't make me want to scream. It was cold. It was a heavy, cold stone settling right in the center of my chest. My mind went back, not to the forgetfulness they were inventing, but to the real memories. I remembered Gabby's wedding 5 years ago. The string quartet, the 300 guests, the flowers flown in from Holland. She wanted a fairy tale. I paid for it, $50,000. I didn't blink. She was my only daughter. I remembered Ryan, my son-in-law, coming to me just a year later. "Dad," he'd said, all smiles and confidence. "Gabby and I found the perfect house in Alpharetta. It's just, the down payment is a little steep." $100,000. I wrote the check. I wanted them to have a good start, a better start than Beatrice and I had. I remembered Ryan again 2 years before that. "Gus, I've been accepted to Emory for my MBA. It's the opportunity of a lifetime, but I don't know how I can afford it." I paid for that too, every last cent of his tuition, because I thought I was investing in my family. I thought I was investing in the man my daughter loved. I had given them everything, and now they were coming for the rest, not by asking, but by trying to label me as insane. The $50,000 wedding, the $100,000 down payment, the $120,000 MBA, all of it. And this was how they repaid me. They weren't just ungrateful, they were predators. "I gave them everything," I whispered out loud to the empty room. "Gus," Amir said, pulling me back to the present. "We need to move fast. I'll file the motion to dismiss based on the fraudulent medical report. I'll call the judge's clerk. We will fight this." I stood up straighter. The old frail man they were trying to invent was gone. "No," I said. "Gus, what do you mean, no? We have to respond. I mean, we are not going to defend Amir." My voice was sharp now. "We are going to attack. You're a good lawyer, but you're a defensive player. I'm not. I didn't build my life by waiting for other people to hit me. What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting you do exactly what I pay you for. I want you to find out who this Dr. Evelyn Reed is. I don't just want her license number. I want to know where she got her degree. I want to know if she has gambling debts. I want to know who paid her for this evaluation. I want you to find everything. Do you understand me? I want her ruined." Amir was silent for a beat. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. He wasn't talking to a victim anymore. "Consider it done, Gus. I'll get my investigator on it immediately." "Good," I said. I looked at the clock. 5:50 p.m. "They are expecting a confused old man to show up at their door at 7, I said, thinking aloud. "They're expecting me to be angry, to yell, to cry. They're expecting me to prove their case for them. They're waiting with their witness, that notary, ready to take notes on how unstable I am." I smiled. It was a cold smile. "Well," I said, "I hate to disappoint them, but I won't be attending." "You're just going to stay home?" Amir asked. "Oh, I'm not staying home, Amir. I'm just changing the venue." I hung up with Amir. I took a deep breath, centered myself, and dialed Gabby's number. I let the phone ring 3 times, then a 4th, just to make them nervous. She picked up, her voice sickeningly sweet. "Dad, are you okay? We were getting worried." I let a small, frail cough escape my lips. "Gabby, sweetheart," I said, my voice trembling just enough. I'm so sorry. I don't think I can make it all the way out to your house." "Oh no," she said, the fake sympathy dripping through the phone. "What's wrong, Dad?" "Is it your legs again, Ryan?" "Dad says his legs are weak." I heard Ryan's muffled voice in the background. "It's working. He's deteriorating. Stick to the plan." Gabby came back. "Don't you worry, Dad. We'll just come to you. We'll pick up some dinner and be right over. And we'll bring our friend Ms. Peterson. She's so excited to meet you." No, child," I said, injecting a note of panic. "No, you can't come here. It's the house, the papers." "The papers? What papers? Dad?" Her voice sharpened. The predator smelled blood. It's about your mother's will," I whispered. I think I found something. A problem. Something about the house and some other things she left. I don't understand it." Silence. Complete silence on her end. I had them hooked. "Dad," she said, her voice low and intense. "What are you talking about? What did you find?" I can't explain over the phone," I stammered. I'm so confused. I'm scared. I called my lawyer, Mr. Hassan. He said he needs to see us. He said it's urgent. Your lawyer. Ryan's voice was suddenly on the phone, sharp as glass. Why did you call your lawyer? Because of the will, Ryan, I said, faking a sob. I don't know what it means. Amir said he needs to see both of you. He said it affects you directly. Please. Can you just meet me at his office? He's waiting for us right now. And please bring your friend, bring Ms. Peterson. Amir said we might need a witness. We might need a notary. I heard a muffled sound, Ryan hissing at Gabby. This is it. He found the old trust. He's going to try to change it. We have to go. We have to stop him. Gabby came back on. Okay, Dad. Okay, don't sign anything until we get there. We're on our way. Send us the address. Oh, thank you, baby, I cried. I'm so scared. I'll see you there. I hung up the phone. The shaking in my voice stopped. The fear in my eyes vanished. I stood up tall. Amir, I said to the empty room. I hope you have the good coffee ready, because the flies are heading right for the spider's web. Amir Hassan's office was not just an office. It was a statement. It took up the entire 40th floor of the Truist Plaza building. The windows were floor-to-ceiling glass showing the whole sweep of Atlanta below. The carpet was so thick my feet sank into it. The receptionist, a sharp woman in a tailored suit, had brought me a glass of sparkling water with a slice of lime. I sat on a black leather sofa that probably cost more than my car. I was calm. The fear I had felt in my apartment was gone. This was my world. This was where I operated. I understood contracts and leverage and consequences. I sipped my water and waited. I had been waiting for 20 minutes. I knew Amir was gathering the ammunition. The door to the conference room opened. Amir Hassan walked in. He wasn't the calm, measured lawyer I had known for 2 decades. His tie was slightly loose and his eyes were blazing. He was carrying an iPad and a thin manila folder. He didn't say hello. Gus, he said, his voice low and tight. I found her. He sat down across from me at the polished mahogany table. Dr. Evelyn Reed, I said, testing the name. Did you find out who she is? Amir let out a short, bitter laugh. Oh, I found out who she is. I love it when these amateurs try to play in the big leagues. They get sloppy. They think no one is watching. He slid the iPad across the table. Gus, Dr. Reed isn't just some random physician Ryan found in the phone book. She isn't a specialist they hired. He tapped the screen. A photograph popped up. It was a Facebook post. A group of people at a Thanksgiving dinner smiling, holding turkey and glasses of wine. Recognize this man? Amir asked, pointing to the right. It's Ryan, I said. And this woman, Amir said, tapping the woman standing next to him, her arm slung around his shoulder, is Dr. Evelyn Reed, or as her profile says, Evie Sullivan Reed. I stared at the screen. Sullivan like Ryan's family. Not just like, Amir said, leaning in. Gus, Evelyn Reed is Ryan Sullivan's first cousin, from his mother's side. The family from Mobile, Alabama. I sat back. The glass in my hand felt heavy. A cousin. He had his own cousin write a medical report declaring me insane. The audacity of it. The cold-blooded, calculated nature of the betrayal. It wasn't just a random act of greed. This was a conspiracy. This was planned. A family member, I murmured. He got a family member to lie for him. Oh, it's much, much worse than that, Gus, Amir said. He opened the manila folder. My investigator didn't just check Facebook. He ran her name through the national medical boards. The first hit was interesting. The second one is the nail in their coffin. He pulled out a printed document. Gus, this is a public censure from the Alabama Board of Medical Examiners dated 3 years ago. Evelyn Reed was sanctioned for gross negligence and insurance fraud. She was caught writing hundreds of fake prescriptions for opioids and billing the insurance companies for ghost patients. I couldn't speak. But here, Amir said, his voice dropping, is the kill shot. He pulled out a second document. Her medical license in Alabama wasn't just sanctioned, Gus. It was revoked. She was permanently disbarred. And as for the state of Georgia, she has never ever been licensed to practice medicine here. Not as a doctor, not as a nurse, not even as a pharmacist's assistant. He tapped the petition they had filed in court. This mental health assessment that your son-in-law submitted to the probate court, it's not just biased. It's not just unethical. It's 100% grade A federal level fraud. It's a worthless piece of paper written by a disgraced criminal who isn't even a doctor. They didn't just lie, Gus. They committed a felony. I leaned back in the chair, and I remembered. I remembered all the times Ryan had sat at my table eating my food. He'd always talked about his family in Alabama. "Oh, they're simple folks, Gus," he'd say. "Just blue-collar workers. I'm the first one who ever went to college." He hadn't just lied to me about his finances. He'd lied to me about everything. His simple family included a cousin who was a professional con artist. "They committed fraud," I said. My voice was calm. The rage was gone, replaced by a cold, clear focus. They hadn't just insulted me. They had handed me the gun, loaded it, and pointed it at their own heads. Just then, the intercom on Amir's desk buzzed softly. Amir pressed the button. "Yes, Cynthia?" His receptionist's voice was crisp and clear. "Mr. Hassan, a Mr. Ryan Sullivan, and a Ms. Gabrielle Powell Sullivan are here to see Mr. Powell. They also have another woman with them, a Ms. Peterson." I looked at Amir. Ms. Peterson. The notary. The independent witness. They had actually brought her. They had brought the person they intended to use to legitimize their lies right into the office of the man who had just uncovered their conspiracy. They were more arrogant and more stupid than I could have ever imagined. I looked at Amir. He looked at me. I nodded slowly. "Send them in, Cynthia," Amir said, his voice smooth as silk. "We're ready for them." The heavy glass door of the conference room swung open, and there they were. Gabby, my daughter, walked in first. She was wearing an expensive-looking beige pantsuit, trying to look professional, but her eyes were darting all over the room. She wouldn't look at me. She just stared at the floor-to-ceiling windows as if she was fascinated by the Atlanta skyline. She was clutching her purse so tightly her knuckles were white. Behind her came Ryan, my son-in-law. He was wearing his best power suit, a dark charcoal gray that I probably paid for. He had his shoulders back and a look on his face that was a poor imitation of authority. He was trying to look annoyed, like we were wasting his valuable time. He was the one who spotted me, and for a split second I saw a flash of panic in his eyes before he covered it with a sneer. And finally, a third person, an older woman I didn't recognize, carrying a heavy leather satchel. She looked professional, tidy, and completely confused. This had to be Ms. Peterson, the notary, the independent witness they had brought to watch me self-destruct. They stood there, clustered by the door, clearly uncomfortable, in a room that screamed money and power. They were used to my little apartment in Decatur. This room, this 40th floor view, this mahogany table, this was not part of their plan. Ryan, of course, spoke first. He was always the one to fill a silence, usually with the sound of his own voice. "Dad," he said, and the word "dad" sounded like an insult. "What is this? You drag us all the way downtown on a Friday night. Gabby was worried sick. You said it was an emergency about Mom's will, Miss. Peterson here had to cancel another appointment to come with us. This is highly irregular." He was trying to take charge, to be the one asking the questions. I just smiled, a slow, calm smile. I didn't stand up. I just gestured with my hand to the long row of empty chairs across the table from me and Amir. "Please sit down," I said. My voice was even. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice, especially you, Ms. Peterson. I'm so glad you're here. We absolutely need a witness for this." Gabby flinched at my words. Ryan narrowed his eyes. They sat down stiffly on the edge of the expensive leather chairs. Ms. Peterson sat next to them, placing her heavy bag on the floor and her hands neatly on the table, still looking completely baffled. Ryan leaned forward. "Okay, we're here. What's this about the will?" I looked at Amir. I nodded. Amir, who had been sitting silently at the head of the table, leaned forward. He placed his hands on the thick, unmarked folder that had been sitting in front of him. "Thank you all for coming," Amir said. His voice was smooth, professional, and absolutely lethal. "Mr. Powell called this meeting because my office received some very interesting legal documents this afternoon, documents that involve all of you." Gabby stopped fidgeting with her purse. Ryan's fake annoyance turned into genuine, alert suspicion. "We didn't file any documents," Ryan said too quickly. "Oh, but you did," Amir replied. He opened his folder. He pulled out a stack of papers at least 50 pages thick and dropped it onto the center of the mahogany table. The sound it made in the silent room was like a gunshot. Thwump. Gabby jumped. Ms. Peterson's eyes widened. Amir placed his hand on top of the stack. "Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan," he said, his voice dropping an octave. "We are in receipt of your petition for emergency conservatorship filed this morning with the DeKalb County Probate Court Case number 25P0884. A petition to have my client, Mr. Augustus Powell, declared mentally incompetent and to have you appointed as his sole legal guardians." Utter, absolute, deafening silence. Gabby's face went white. Not just pale. I mean sheet white, like all the blood had drained out of her head. Her mouth opened slightly, and she made a small gasping sound like a fish pulled from water. Ryan was better. I'll give him that. He was a good liar. He didn't gasp. He didn't move. But his jaw clenched. I saw a small muscle twitch just below his ear. His eyes, which had been full of fake bluster, were now cold and hard. He was a rat trapped in a corner, and he knew it. But the best reaction came from Ms. Peterson. Her head snapped back and forth between the papers on the table to Ryan and Gabby, and then to me. "A petition for—" "What?" she asked, her voice sharp with alarm. "Mr. Sullivan, you told me I was coming to notarize a simple family trust amendment. You told me Mr. Powell was fully in agreement. You never said anything about an incompetence hearing." Ryan ignored her. He was staring at Amir. "This is a private family matter. You had no right to interfere." Amir actually smiled. "Mr. Sullivan, when you file a petition to strip a man of his civil liberties and seize his assets, and that man happens to be my client of 20 years, it stops being a private family matter. It becomes my business. And right now, business is booming." The room was so quiet I could hear the air conditioning humming. Gabby looked like she was going to be sick. Her face was ashen and her eyes were wide with terror. She looked from Amir to the papers, to me, and back to the papers. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She was trapped. But Ryan was different. I watched him. He was a cornered animal, yes, but a dangerous one. He took 1, 2, 3 deep breaths. He was visibly calming himself down, pushing the panic away, searching for his next lie. He actually straightened his expensive tie. He looked at me, and his face was a mask of pure, rehearsed sincerity. He even managed to make his voice sound soft, full of pain. "Dad," he said, shaking his head slowly. "Dad, we didn't want you to find out this way." I just stared at him. This was going to be good. We were so worried about you," he continued, his voice catching. You've been forgetting things, Dad. Little things at first, but they're getting bigger." He looked at Gabby, a silent command. She jumped in her voice, a high-pitched, trembling mess. "It's true, Dad," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. Oh, the tears. They were always part of the performance. "Last week, you forgot I even called. We talked for 20 minutes, and then 2 hours later you called me asking why I hadn't checked in. It was a lie, a complete, total fabrication. And the stove, Dad," Ryan said, his voice full of sorrow. "The gas stove. My God, we were terrified. You could have hurt yourself. You could have hurt the whole building." "My stove is electric," I said, my voice quiet. "See?" Ryan pounced, his eyes lighting up. "See, this is what we mean. You're confused. You think it's electric, but it's gas. I smelled it myself." He was good. He was very, very good. He was taking my reality and twisting it right here in front of everyone. Gabby was sobbing now, full-on, shoulders-shaking sobs. "We just want to protect you," she cried, reaching a hand across the table. Not to me, but toward the papers, as if she could make them disappear. "It's because we love you. We don't care about things. We just care about you. We just want you to be safe." Her voice echoed in the silent, expensive room. "We just want you to be safe." I looked at my daughter, my only child, the girl I taught to ride a bike, the girl I held when she had her first broken heart. She had learned to lie, she had learned to perform, she had learned to cry on command, and I felt nothing. Just a vast, cold emptiness where my love for her used to be. I let her words hang in the air for a long moment. I looked at her, then at Ryan, who was nodding with a sad, "See what you put us through" expression. "You love me," I repeated. My voice was flat. "Yes," Gabby whispered. "And you just want me to be safe." "More than anything," Ryan added, his voice dripping with false emotion. "I see," I said. I let the silence stretch just long enough for it to become uncomfortable. Then I turned my head just slightly toward Amir. Amir, I said, since we are all here talking about how much they love me, why don't you show them how much they love me? Ryan's head snapped toward Amir. What is he talking about? Amir didn't answer him. He just reached into his folder again. He pulled out a second document. This one was thinner, only 3 or 4 pages stapled at the corner. He didn't drop this one. He slid it slowly across the polished mahogany. The paper whispered as it moved over the wood, a sound louder than a scream. It stopped right in front of Ryan. Ryan looked down at it. Gabby leaned over to see what it was. I watched her face as she read the header. I watched her eyes scan the first paragraph. I watched the color drain from her face all over again. Ryan, she whispered, her voice no longer crying but sharp with a new, different kind of fear. Ryan, what is this? What is RE Max Platinum Services? Ryan didn't answer. He was staring at the paper as if it was a snake. Mr. Sullivan, Amir said, his voice polite. Perhaps you can explain it to your wife, or if you'd prefer, I can. Ryan was silent. Very well, Amir said. He leaned forward. That Mrs. Sullivan is a copy of an exclusive listing agreement. It's a contract. He pointed a finger at the paper. It's a contract signed by both you and your husband to hire a real estate agent to sell a property, specifically this property. He tapped the address. 124 Sycamore Drive, Decatur, Georgia. He paused, letting the information land. Mr. Powell's house, Amir clarified in case there was any confusion. My client's home. You listed it for sale for $1.5 million. Gabby looked at Ryan. You listed the house without telling me. Ryan finally found his voice, but it was a strangled whisper. It was just preliminary, just to see what we could get. It's not active. Oh, but it is, Amir said, pulling another piece of paper from his folder. This is the live MLS listing. It went active this morning, complete with professional photographs, 24 of them. The photographer must have been there last week. I particularly like the drone shot of the backyard. Gabby's head whipped around to Ryan. You had a photographer at Dad's house. When did you do this? Ryan was starting to sweat. He was breathing hard. He looked at me, then at Amir. This is illegal. You have no right to my private documents. Your private documents, Amir asked, raising an eyebrow. Mr. Sullivan, this became a public document the moment you filed it with the MLS. But that's not even the most interesting part. He looked at Gabby, then at me, then at Ms. Peterson, the notary who looked like she wanted to crawl under the table. Amir pointed to the bottom of the listing agreement. The most interesting part is the date. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper, but it carried across the entire room. You signed this agreement on, let me see. Yes, last Tuesday. October 31st, Halloween. He looked up at them, his eyes like ice. That Mr. Sullivan was 3 full days before you filed the petition to have Mr. Powell declared incompetent. You were already planning to sell his house, before you even had the legal authority to do so, before you even asked for it. He sat back. So please, tell me again, Mrs. Sullivan. Tell me how this is all about love. Tell me how you're just worried about his safety. Ms. Peterson, the notary, suddenly stood up. Her chair scraped loudly against the polished floor, the sound sharp in the tense room. Wait just a minute, she said, her voice shaking with professional indignation. I must object to this. What is going on here? A conservatorship petition. An MLS listing. She turned her sharp, angry eyes on Ryan, who visibly flinched. Mr. Sullivan, you telephoned me this morning. You told me, and I quote, that I was needed to witness and notarize a simple family document. You said your father-in-law was in full agreement and merely wanted to tidy up his affairs with his family present. She looked at me, then at Amir, her face flushed with embarrassment and anger. I am an independent notary public for the state of Georgia. I was not informed of any incompetence hearing. I was not informed of any disputed property sale. My presence here, sir, is under what appears to be deeply false pretenses. She snapped her heavy leather satchel shut. I will not be a party to this. This is highly irregular. I have a professional reputation to protect. I am leaving this office immediately. She started to turn. Please, Ms. Peterson, I said, my voice quiet but firm. Don't go. Not just yet. She stopped, one hand on her bag. You are absolutely correct, I continued. You were brought here under false pretenses. But not by me, and certainly not by Mr. Hassan. You were brought here by them. I motioned with my head toward my daughter and son-in-law. You are their independent witness. You were brought here to watch me get angry, to watch me get confused so you could sign an affidavit detailing my instability. You are a key part of their plan, ma'am. You just didn't know it. Ms. Peterson's face went from angry to pale. She slowly, very slowly sat back down. She didn't say a word, she just watched. I looked at Amir. He nodded. Amir gave Ms. Peterson a small, reassuring smile. We know you are not a party to this, Ms. Peterson, and we apologize for their deception. But you are, as Mr. Powell said, a witness, and as a notary, I believe you of all people will appreciate the sheer creativity of their next exhibit. His eyes swiveled from her and locked onto Ryan. Ryan looked like he wanted to be anywhere else on earth. He was trying to stare at the water glass in front of him, but his eyes kept darting to the door to Gabby, to me. Mr. Sullivan, Amir said, his voice dangerously polite. Let's move past the house, shall we? Let's talk about the reason you and your wife felt you could sell the house. Let's talk about my client's failing health. Amir picked up a single 3-page document from the stack. He held it up between his thumb and forefinger as if it were a dirty rag. This is my favorite part, he said. The mental health assessment of Mr. Augustus Powell, signed by a Dr. Evelyn Reed, a woman you described in your petition, Mr. Sullivan, as a leading geriatric specialist and a respected expert in cognitive decline. Ryan sat up a little straighter. This was obviously the part he had rehearsed. Dr. Reed is a highly respected expert, Ryan said, his voice tight. Her medical opinion is valid. We sought her out. We got a second opinion because we were so worried about Dad's behavior. I almost laughed. A second opinion. I hadn't even had a first opinion. A highly respected expert, Amir repeated, savoring the words. He smiled a thin, cold smile that didn't come anywhere near his eyes. That's fascinating, because I ran her name. My investigator, he's very thorough, and he found this. Amir slid a printed document across the table. It wasn't for Ryan, it was for Gabby. That Mrs. Sullivan, Amir said, is a public censure from the Alabama Board of Medical Examiners, dated 3 years ago. It seems your respected expert, Dr. Reed, was caught in let me get the official wording right, a conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. She was writing fake prescriptions for opioids for patients who didn't exist and then billing the insurance companies. Gabby's hand flew to her mouth. She looked at Ryan. Ryan, what is he talking about? You said she was brilliant. That was a paperwork misunderstanding. Ryan snapped, his voice getting higher. A clerical error. She was cleared. It was a long time ago. Cleared? Amir asked, his voice full of mock surprise. Is that what you call having your medical license permanently revoked in the state of Alabama? Because that's what this next document says. He slid another paper toward Gabby. She isn't a respected expert, Mr. Sullivan. She isn't even a doctor. She hasn't been for 3 years. She's a con artist. She still consults. Ryan was desperate now, grasping at straws. Her expertise is valid. She practices in Georgia now. In Georgia, Amir said, as if this was brand new information. That's even more fascinating, because this third document, he slid it over, is from the Georgia Composite Medical Board, and they have never, ever heard of her. She has no license here. She has never applied for a license here. Mr. Sullivan submitting a fraudulent medical report written by an individual who is not licensed to practice medicine to a court of law. That isn't just unethical. It's a crime. It's called perjury. It's called filing a false instrument. Ryan was sweating. I could see a bead of it run down his temple. I didn't know. How could I possibly know her entire legal history? I'm not a detective. I trusted her. I trusted her professional opinion. You trusted her? Amir repeated, nodding slowly. Yes, I suppose you did. You'd have to, wouldn't you? It makes sense. What does... Ryan asked, confused. That you'd trust her, Amir said. After all, she's your cousin. Gabby let out a small strangled noise. What? Gus? Amir said, turning to me. May I nodded. Amir turned his laptop computer around on the table so it faced Gabby and Ryan. He clicked the mouse. The giant 60-inch television screen on the conference room wall, the one they thought was just for decoration, flickered to life. It wasn't a document. It was a Facebook page, a public profile for a woman named Evie Sullivan Reed. And there, right on her main timeline, was a photo from last Thanksgiving. A big, happy group of people around a dining table raising their glasses. That, Amir said, using a laser pointer, is a photo from the Sullivan family reunion in Mobile, Alabama. And that, he aimed the red dot, is you, Mr. Sullivan. And that, the dot moved one person over to the woman with her arm slung around Ryan's shoulder, is your first cousin, Evelyn, Evie, as you call her in the comments. Gabby just stared. Her face was a mask of pure dawning horror. Ryan, she whispered, her voice dead. She's your cousin from Mobile, the one you told me she worked in pharmaceuticals. Ryan didn't say a word. He just stared at his own smiling face on the screen. He was trapped. The lies were all around him, a cage of his own making. He had lied to his own wife. He had involved his disgraced criminal cousin in a felony, all to steal from me. Ms. Peterson, the notary who had been watching this entire exchange like a hawk, finally spoke. She stood up, her voice shaking with professional righteous fury. Mr. Sullivan, she said, you didn't just bring me here under false pretenses. You brought me here to make me an accessory to fraud. She grabbed her heavy bag. I am leaving. My first call will be to the district attorney's office to report this attempt to file a fraudulent document. My second will be to the state bar. And my third, she looked at Amir, will be to offer my full sworn testimony for Mr. Powell's countersuit. She turned and walked out. The slam of the heavy glass door echoed in the tomb-like silence of the room. Ryan just sat there, broken. Gabby was staring at him, and the tears that were now streaming down her face weren't from sadness. They were from rage. You lied to me, she whispered. You lied about everything. I decided it was my time to speak. I leaned forward, resting my hands on the cool, polished table. Yes, he did, baby girl, I said, my voice soft. He lied to you. He lied to the court, and he lied to me. I looked directly at Ryan. His eyes finally met mine. They were filled with terror. And now, I said, now you're going to tell me why. Amir's finger clicked the mouse. The giant 60-inch television screen on the conference room wall, the one they probably thought was just for decoration, flickered to life. It wasn't a document. It wasn't a spreadsheet. It was a Facebook page, a public profile for a woman named Evie Sullivan Reed. And there, right on her main timeline, was a photo. A big, happy group of people gathered around a Thanksgiving dinner table, raising their glasses, smiling for the camera. Gabby squinted, confused. What is this? Who are these people? Just a moment, Mrs. Sullivan, Amir said. He used a small red laser pointer. The dot landed on a smiling man on the right side of the photo, his arm draped over a woman's shoulder. That, Amir said, his voice calm, is you, Mr. Sullivan. And that, the red dot moved one person over to the woman Ryan was hugging, the same woman from the professional headshot on the fake medical report, is your first cousin. Evelyn, Evie, as you call her in the comments section. Gabby let out a small strangled noise. A little oh. It was barely audible. She stared at the screen. I watched her. I watched her mind work connecting the dots. The respected expert who was hard to book. The old classmate from Alabama. The woman who signed the paper declaring me insane. She turned her head slowly to look at her husband. Ryan was frozen. He was staring at his own smiling face on the screen, his mask of confidence completely gone. He looked like a man who had just seen a ghost. When Gabby finally spoke, her voice was not a shout. It was a whisper. A low, sharp, dangerous whisper. Ryan. He didn't answer. He just kept staring at the screen. Ryan. Look at me. He finally slowly turned to face her. A classmate, Gabby whispered, her voice trembling with a rage that was just beginning to build. An old classmate from medical school, that's what you told me. Gabby, listen. Ryan stammered, his eyes wide with panic. It's complicated. She is a doctor, or she's your cousin, Gabby hissed. Your cousin Evie. The one you told me worked in pharmaceuticals, the one you said was a bit of a black sheep. It's not what it looks like, Ryan said, his voice getting louder, turning to me as if I were the problem. Dad, this is a violation of privacy. You can't just pull up my private photos. This is manipulation. It's manipulation, Amir repeated, raising an eyebrow. That's a bold word from a man who just submitted a fraudulent medical document signed by his criminal cousin to have his own father-in-law stripped of his rights. Don't you think? Gabby stood up, her chair scraped back. You lied to me, she shouted, pointing a shaking finger at Ryan. You didn't just lie to him, you lied to me. You made me a part of this. You told me he was senile. You told me he was a danger to himself. He is, Ryan shouted back, finally cracking. He's forgetting things, the gas stove. My stove is electric, I roared. My voice bounced off the glass walls. It was the first time I had raised it. The frail old man was gone. Ryan physically recoiled. Gabby froze. I told you that, I said, my voice dropping back to that cold, dangerous level. I told you that last month when you came over smelling gas. I told you it was electric, and you laughed. You patted my arm. You said, "See, Dad, you're confused." Gabby looked at Ryan, her face a mask of pure dawning horror. Oh my God, she whispered. The listing, the house. You told me he agreed to sell the house. You told me he was just feeling emotional about it, but you'd already listed it. You lied about that too. Gabby, shut up. Ryan hissed, his eyes darting to Amir, then to me. You're not helping. This is a family matter. This is just a formality. He turned to me. His hands spread wide, a desperate, pathetic attempt at a smile on his face. Dad, come on. This is just paperwork. You don't understand the legal process. We had to file it just to get you the help you need. I'd had enough. I slowly pushed my chair back. The sound was quiet, deliberate. I stood up. I was 70 years old, but I am not a small man. I stood up to my full height, the one that had run a boardroom for 30 years. I looked down at my son-in-law, the man I had fed, the man I had educated, the man I had housed, the man who had just tried to end my life as I knew it. My voice was not loud, it was not angry. It was the quiet, final voice of a judge passing sentence. I understand perfectly, Ryan. He flinched. I understand, I said, that you two, and I looked at Gabby, who was now sobbing silently, came here tonight with a plan. You came here with a notary to a meeting I arranged, a meeting you thought was about my wife's will. You came here, I continued, to get me to sign papers, and if I refused, your independent witness would testify that I was agitated and uncooperative, proving your case. I understand, I said, taking a step closer, that you hired your disgraced criminal cousin to write a fake medical report. A report based on lies, the gas stove, the forgetfulness, all of it, a performance. I understand, I said, my voice dropping even lower, that you already listed my home for sale, a home I paid for, a home my wife died in. You listed it for sale before you even tried to have me declared insane. I looked him right in the eye. You didn't just lie, Ryan. You committed a crime, several of them, conspiracy to commit fraud, filing a false instrument with the court, identity fraud, defamation, and that's just what my lawyer found in 1 hour. Ryan was pale, shaking his bravado completely gone. Gabby was looking at the floor, her body trembling. I looked at Amir. Amir, I said. My voice was clear and final. It echoed in the vast, silent room. Call the police. Gabby let out a sound. It was not a word. It was a high, thin wail of pure animal panic. No! She shrieked the word tearing out of her throat. No! Dad! No! Please! She stumbled forward, lunging toward the table, her hands grasping for the documents for me, for anything. Don't. Please. Don't call them. You can't. Ryan grabbed her arm, his fingers digging into her expensive suit. Gabby, be quiet. Stop it. This is just a scare tactic. They can't do anything. A scare tactic, Amir said, his voice as cold as a morgue. Filing a false report with the court, conspiracy to commit fraud, practicing medicine without a license. I assure you, Mr. Sullivan, the district attorney does not consider those scare tactics. Please, Gabby sobbed, twisting away from Ryan's grasp. She fell to her knees on the thick carpet right there in the $1 million conference room. She looked up at me, her face a mess of streaming mascara and abject terror. Dad, please. You don't understand. You don't understand what's been happening. Gabby, I am warning you. Shut your mouth, Ryan hissed, his face pale and slick with sweat. He looked at me desperate. She's hysterical. Dad, you see, this is what we were talking about. She's under a lot of stress. She doesn't know what she's saying. I know exactly what I'm saying, Gabby screamed, rounding on him from the floor. I know that you lied to me. You lied about your cousin. You lied about the house. You lied about everything. She turned back to me, her hands clasped together as if in prayer. Dad, please listen to me. Don't call the police. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Then what? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. Was it supposed to be like Gabrielle? It was just money, she cried. It was just the money. Ryan closed his eyes. He knew it was over. We didn't know what else to do, she wailed, the words pouring out of her in a frantic, broken torrent. We're in trouble, Dad. We're in so much trouble. I just stared at her. I gave her nothing. No sympathy, no anger. Just cold, empty space. Ryan, she sobbed. Ryan, he lost his job. Dad, he lost his job 8 months ago. I glanced at Ryan. He was staring at the wall. His jaw clenched so hard a muscle was jumping in his cheek. He had been pretending to go to work every day for 8 months, wearing the suits I probably paid for getting in the car I helped him buy, and lying to my daughter's face. He didn't tell me, Gabby cried. He didn't tell anyone. He kept pretending. He kept taking clients to lunch, using the credit cards. He kept saying he was waiting for his big bonus. But there was no bonus. There was no job. There was just nothing. He said he was handling the finances. She continued, her voice rising in hysteria. He said not to worry, and I didn't. I just kept spending, and he did too. He said we had to maintain appearances for his clients. We bought the new car. We went on that trip to Hawaii. She was choking on her own sobs. And then, she whispered, 2 months ago the letters started coming. The red letters. The final notice letters. Dad, we're ruined. Ryan said nothing. He just stood there, a statue of his own failure. How ruined, Gabby? Amir asked, his voice calm, like a doctor asking a patient to describe the pain. $150,000, she whispered. That's just the credit cards. American Express. Visa. All of them. Maxed out. Over the limit. She took a ragged breath. And the house. The house in Alpharetta. The one you helped us buy. She looked at me, her eyes begging for something I no longer had to give. The bank, Dad. The bank is foreclosing. We haven't made a mortgage payment in 6 months. They're taking the house. The auction is in 2 weeks. So, there it was. Not just greed, not just ambition, pure, unadulterated, screaming desperation. They weren't just trying to get rich, they were trying to plug a hole in a sinking ship. A ship they had scuttled themselves. Ryan had lost his job. They were living a lie. They were broke, about to be homeless and drowning in a debt of their own making. And their grand solution, their brilliant MBA-level plan. It wasn't to come to me, the man who had funded their entire lives. It wasn't to ask for help. It wasn't to confess. It was to declare me insane, lock me in a home, and steal my house to pay for their mistakes. We didn't have a choice, Gabby sobbed, crawling forward on her knees, grabbing the leg of my pants. We didn't have any other choice. Ryan said, he said you'd never help. He said you'd just judge us. He said you'd call him a failure. He said this was the only way to use your assets to protect them for our future. He said it wasn't nice stealing if we were your guardians. He said it was just managing. I looked down at my daughter, my only child, clinging to my leg. Her expensive pantsuit ruined her face, a mask of desperation. She had just confessed to conspiracy, to fraud, to everything. And in her own broken, twisted mind, she was still trying to justify it. We didn't have a choice, she whispered one last time, as if that pathetic little sentence could undo everything, as if that made it all okay. I looked down at my daughter, my only child, kneeling on the floor of my lawyer's office, clinging to my pants. I didn't feel anger, I didn't feel sadness. I felt nothing, just a cold, vast emptiness. You didn't have a choice, I repeated, my voice flat. Gabby looked up, her face, desperate, searching for any sign of the father she knew. No, we were desperate. You were desperate, I said, nodding slowly. So you needed money. You were about to lose your house, the house I gave you the down payment for. You were $150,000 in debt, because you were living a life you couldn't afford. A life you were never willing to work for. I looked over at Ryan, who was still staring at the wall, his face pale and slick. So you had a problem, I continued, my voice as cold and hard as the glass window behind me. A financial problem. And instead of coming to me, the man who paid for your $50,000 wedding, the man who paid for your $120,000 master's degree, the man who has done nothing but give and give and give to you both since the day you met. I paused, letting the weight of it fill the room. Instead of coming to me as a son comes to a father, you decided to have me declared insane. You decided to forge medical documents. You decided to conspire with a disgraced criminal. You decided to lock me away in a nursing home to die so you could steal my house. I bent down just slightly, forcing Gabby to look me in the eye. You didn't do this because you had no choice, Gabrielle. You did this because you are weak. You did this because you are cowards. And you did this because you thought I was a simple, forgetful old man who wouldn't fight back. I straightened up. I looked at Ryan. You, Ryan, I said. You're the one with the MBA I paid for. You're the finance guy. You stood in my small apartment, the one I've lived in for 40 years, and you judged me. You looked at my old furniture, you looked at my simple clothes, and you wrote me off. You thought I was just a poor old man living on a pension. Wasn't that the plan? A confused old fool with a house he didn't deserve? Ryan stammered, his lips pulling back in a grimace. No, Dad, Amir, I said, cutting him off. I turned to my lawyer, who was watching the entire scene with a look of cold satisfaction. I think it's time we corrected that misunderstanding. I think it's time you showed my family who I really am. Show them. Gabby stopped crying. She looked up confused. Ryan frowned. Show us what are you talking about? Amir didn't speak. He simply picked up his laptop from the table, turned it around, and slid it in front of them. The screen was lit. It showed a web page, a very professional-looking corporate website. What is this? Gabby whispered, wiping her nose. Powell and Mason Holdings. What is that, Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan? Amir said, his voice smooth and professional. You are correct. Mr. Powell isn't just a simple old man living on a pension. He tapped a key and the screen changed to an About Us page. My picture was there next to another man's. You are looking at Augustus Gus Powell, Amir continued, the sole proprietor, silent founding partner, and majority shareholder of Powell and Mason Holdings, a commercial real estate firm based right here in Atlanta. Gabby and Ryan just stared blank-faced. The name meant nothing to them. Amir smiled. No, I suppose you wouldn't have heard of it. Mr. Powell values his privacy. But perhaps you've heard of its assets. He clicked the mouse. A new slide appeared. A portfolio. The Piedmont Tower downtown, Amir asked politely. The Buckhead Plaza complex. The twin office parks on Peachtree Dunwoody Road. The land under the shops at Alpharetta. Gabby's hand went to her mouth again. Ryan's eyes widened. He knew those names. Powell and Mason Holdings, Amir said, currently owns or manages 14 Class A office buildings in the metro Atlanta area. Mr. Powell's estimated personal net worth based on current valuations is approximately $28 million. Ryan made a short, sharp gasp. Gabby just stared. Her brain had clearly stopped working. I decided to speak. My voice was quiet again. The building you used to work in, Ryan, I said. The one in Midtown. The one you got fired from 8 months ago, I own it. I've owned it for 15 years. I get a report every month. That's how I knew you'd been fired, son. I was just waiting for you to tell me, waiting for you to be a man. Ryan's face was chalk white. The country club you joined, I continued. The one you couldn't afford, the one you're 6 months behind on dues for. I own the land it's built on. They pay me a lease every quarter. I was going to cover your dues, a little gift, but I suppose that's off the table now. I looked at Gabby. My pension isn't $2,000 a month, baby girl. My monthly dividend income from my investments is closer to $200,000. And then I delivered the final fatal blow. You said you're losing your house, the one in Alpharetta, that the bank is foreclosing and the auction is in 2 weeks. Ryan nodded, dumbstruck. No, it's not, I said. It's not. Because I've been anonymously paying your overdue mortgage payments for the last 6 months. I've been paying them through a trust. I was trying to protect you. I was trying to give you time to come to me, to get your act together, to be an adult. I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a whisper. But you were too busy. You were too busy conspiring with your criminal cousin. You were too busy trying to declare me insane. You were too busy trying to steal from the one man in the world who was secretly, desperately trying to save you from yourselves. Ryan and Gabby were completely paralyzed. They just sat there frozen in the expensive leather chairs. The air in the conference room was so thick and heavy it felt like you could drown in it. I watched them. They weren't just scared. They were broken. I could see the exact moment the full scope of their stupidity hit them. Ryan, the man with the master's degree, the finance guy, was staring at the laptop screen which still showed my portfolio. His face was a mask of sick, dawning horror. He hadn't just picked a fight with his father-in-law. He had tried to con a shark. He had brought a plastic knife to a gunfight. He had tried to steal $1 million from a man who was secretly giving him thousands, and in doing so had exposed his own incompetence, his own lies, his own pathetic failure to the one person he was most desperate to fool. And Gabby, my daughter. She was no longer looking at Ryan with anger. She was looking at him with a kind of dead-eyed pity. She had hitched her wagon to this man, this impressive, confident man in his expensive suits, and she had just learned that he was a broke, unemployed fraud who had not only failed, but had dragged her into committing a felony against a father who turned out to be one of the wealthiest men in the state. They weren't just criminals, they were fools. And that humiliation I could see was worse than the fear. I let the silence stretch. I let them sit in it. I let them suffocate in the consequences of their own choices. Finally, I sat down in my own chair at the head of the table. The sound of it sliding on the floor was like thunder. They both flinched. So, I said, my voice quiet, cutting through the silence. Here we are. I folded my hands on the table. You came here tonight to manage my assets. You came here with a fake doctor's note and a notary to try and steal my house. And now, I gestured to the laptop. Now we all know the truth. Gabby started to open her mouth, probably to apologize again, to beg. I raised one finger. Don't speak, Gabrielle. It's my turn to speak, and it's your turn to listen. She closed her mouth. As I see it, I said, looking from her to Ryan, we have 2 paths forward from this exact moment, 2 and only 2, and you will not be choosing. I will. I held up one finger. Path number 1. It's the simplest. It's the cleanest. I turned to my lawyer. Amir, if I chose path number 1, what would happen? Tell them. Tell them exactly what would happen right now. Amir, who had been watching silently, straightened his tie. He looked at Ryan and Gabby as if they were insects. Path number 1, Amir said, his voice clipped and professional, is that Mr. Powell instructs me to pick up this phone. He tapped the conference phone. I would call Detective Mike Sloan, my personal contact at the Atlanta Police Department's white-collar crime division. He would be here in less than 10 minutes. Gabby let out a small, terrified whimper. While we waited for him, Amir continued, I would finalize the evidence package. That would include your signed petition for conservatorship, the fraudulent medical report, my investigators' full file on Evelyn Reed, including her revoked medical license and her criminal record in Alabama. I would also include the MLS listing for Mr. Powell's home, which proves clear financial motive and premeditation. And of course, Ms. Peterson's sworn affidavit that you brought her here under false pretenses to witness a document related to an incompetence case she knew nothing about. He paused, letting them absorb the full weight of the evidence. You, he pointed at Ryan, would be arrested for conspiracy to commit fraud, filing a false instrument, and identity theft. You would also likely face charges related to practicing medicine without a license, as you procured and presented the fraudulent report from your cousin. He then turned to Gabby. You, Mrs. Sullivan, as a co-petitioner and signatory on all the same documents, would be arrested on the exact same charges: conspiracy, fraud, perjury. It wouldn't be a misunderstanding. I cut in, my voice cold. It wouldn't be a family matter. You would be arrested here in this office. You would be handcuffed. You would be taken downstairs in front of everyone in the lobby and put in the back of a police car. Gabby was openly sobbing now, ugly, gasping sobs. You would be arraigned Monday morning, Amir continued. The judge would set bail, given your financial situation, and he smiled. I doubt you could pay it, so you would wait for your trial in the DeKalb County Jail. And at trial with this evidence, you would be convicted, on all counts. And make no mistake, I said, you would be convicted. I would spend whatever it takes. I would hire the best prosecutors in this state to make an example of you. You would not get probation. You would not get house arrest. You would go to prison, a real prison. I let that sink in. You, Ryan, I said, with your MBA would be a convicted felon. You would never work in finance or business or anything ever again. You, Gabby, would be a convicted felon. You would lose any chance of a career. You would lose your friends. You would lose your life. I looked at them both. You would lose everything. That is path number one. It is clean, it is simple, and it is final. I looked at Gabby crumpled on the floor. I looked at Ryan sweating through his expensive suit. The smell of their panic was thick in the air. That, I said, my voice quiet, is path number one. It is clean, it is final, and it is by God what both of you deserve. Gabby let out a low, broken moan. No. No, Dad, please. Not prison. Please, you can't. You can't. I'll do anything. We'll do anything. Please. Ryan's head snapped up. His eyes, which had been dead, now had a wild, desperate flicker. A drowning man seeing a piece of driftwood. Anything, Dad. Anything. You said there were two paths. What's path number two? We'll take it. We'll take path number two. I almost smiled. Of course he would. I sat down, lacing my fingers together on the polished table. Ah, yes, I said. Path number two. You should listen very carefully to this one. Because it's not forgiveness. Forgiveness. I looked at them, letting the words sink in, is what I was giving you for the last 6 months every time I paid your mortgage while you were busy plotting my financial and mental ruin. Forgiveness is what I gave you when I paid for your wedding, your house, and your education. That is over. Forgiveness is off the table forever. Path number two, I said, is not mercy. It is a business arrangement. It's a severance package. It is the terms of your complete and total excision from my life and my finances. It is my generous offer to let you walk away from this table instead of being dragged out in handcuffs. I looked at Amir. He was already opening his briefcase. He knew this part was coming. But this offer is only good, I said, if you agree to all of my conditions. Not some of them, all of them, right here, right now, in this room. Ryan nodded his head, bobbing up and down too fast. Yes, okay, anything. What is it? 1, I said. Amir has drawn up some new documents. Amir slid 2 identical thick legal papers across the table. He slid them past the evidence, past the laptop, and placed them neatly in front of Ryan and Gabby. What is this? Gabby whispered, her hands shaking so badly she couldn't pick it up. That, Amir said, is an irrevocable renunciation of executorship, inheritance, and all power of attorney. You will sign it. Right now. Ryan's eyes scanned the first page. This says we give up all rights to your estate. We give up everything. That's right, son, I said. You will legally, finally, and forever renounce any claim to my estate. You will renounce any future inheritance no matter what. You will renounce any right to act as my power of attorney. And I leaned forward. Most importantly, you will renounce under penalty of perjury any and all right to ever make a medical decision on my behalf ever again. I looked them both in the eye. You wanted to have me declared incompetent, fine. As of tonight, you will not have the legal standing to even ask a nurse what my temperature is. You will be in the eyes of the law complete and total strangers. I looked at the notary. Ms. Peterson, I apologize again for the deception these two used to get you here. But since you are here, I would be most grateful if you would stay to notarize these signatures. I will of course pay you for your time. She looked at Ryan and Gabby with pure contempt, then looked at me and knotted her lips a thin, angry line. It would be my pleasure, Mr. Powell. I pushed a pen toward them. Sign it. They scrambled for the pen. I watched their hands tremble as they signed away their inheritance, as they signed away their connection to me forever. Good, I said, as Ms. Peterson put her official stamp on the papers. Condition 1 is complete. 2, I continued. The house in Alpharetta, the one you are being foreclosed on, you will sell it. Not next month, not next week. Amir will appoint a liquidator for you on Monday morning. You will list it for whatever price he says, and you will accept the first reasonable cash offer. You will be out of that house in 30 days. Ryan started to speak. But our things... The market is... I don't care about your things, Ryan, I snapped. And I don't care about the market. You will sell it. That is the condition. 3, I said. From the proceeds of that sale after the bank is finally paid, what it is owed, the first check you write will be to me, for $100,000. You will repay me the down payment I gave you. Gabby let out a small pained sound. But Dad, after the mortgage and the penalties, there won't be anything left that will take everything. Yes, I said. That is correct, Gabrielle. That is the point. You will not profit from this. You will walk away with absolutely nothing, which I promise you is infinitely better than what you were planning for me. 4, I said, looking at Ryan. You will get a job. And I don't mean networking at the country club I own the land for. I don't mean consulting out of your spare bedroom. I mean a job, a W-2, one that pays a salary, one that you go to every single day. You're a smart man. You have an MBA that I paid for. I'm sure someone will hire you. Maybe Starbucks. I hear they have excellent benefits. The look of pure humiliation on his face was satisfying. And you too, Gabby, I said, turning to my daughter. Your days of being a socialite and running errands are over. You will work, you will get a job, you will contribute. You will learn perhaps for the very first time what it feels like to earn $1 instead of just spending $1. They just nodded, completely beaten. And 5, I said. This was the last part, and it was just for her. I looked at my daughter. This one is just for you, Gabby. You will go into therapy, real professional clinical therapy, with a real doctor, one that I approve, and you, I added, will find a way to pay for it. You will go every single week for 1 year, because I don't know who you are anymore, and I don't think you know who you are. You need to figure out on your own time and on your own dime how my daughter, the girl I raised, became a person who would conspire with this failure, to destroy her own father. I stood up. Those are the terms. Path number 2. You sign, you sell, you pay, you work, you heal. You start your life over from nothing. I looked at Amir. Or, I said, my voice like gravel. We can go back to path number 1. Amir still has the police on speed dial. I looked at the expensive clock on Amir's wall. You have 30 seconds to decide. Ryan's head, which had been bowed in defeat, snapped up. His face was a mask of pure, uncomprehending panic. He wasn't thinking about the law. He wasn't thinking about morality. He was a finance guy, and he was finally doing the math. He was calculating his own ruin. But, he stammered, his voice cracking, but if we sell the house and pay you back the $100,000 after the bank, after the fees, there will be nothing left. Literally nothing. He looked at Gabby, then at me, his eyes wild. We'll be homeless. We'll have no money. Nothing. How are we supposed to live? What are we supposed to do? His voice was rising, that same entitled whine I had heard so many times, the sound of a man who has never truly faced a consequence in his entire life. I looked at him. I really looked at him. The expensive suit, the $30 haircut, the MBA I paid for, the man who had just tried to have me committed so he could steal my house. And he had the audacity to ask me how he was supposed to live. I almost laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. It was a short, sharp, bitter sound that came from deep in my chest. You're asking me, I said, my voice dangerously soft, how you're supposed to live. Ryan flinched. By working, son, I said. The word hit him like a slap. By getting a job, I continued. By earning a paycheck. By paying your own bills. By doing the one thing you've been avoiding for the last 8 months. You will live by working, just like I did. I leaned forward. Let me tell you something, Ryan. When I was your age, I had a wife I adored, a daughter I worshipped, and a negative net worth. I started with nothing. I built a $28 million company from 2 bare hands and a high school education. I did it by working 16-hour days. I did it by sacrificing. I did it by being smarter and tougher than everyone else in the room. I pointed a finger at him. You started with everything. You started with a $100,000 down payment. You started with a $50,000 wedding. You started with a $120,000 master's degree in business administration that I paid for. I let that hang in the air. You have all the tools, you have the education, you have the advantages I never had. So don't you dare ask me how you're going to live. You're a smart man, Ryan. I'm sure you'll be just fine. I looked at them both, their faces pale and shattered. You wanted to manage my assets. Well, now you get to learn how to build your own. You wanted to live off my money. Now you get to live off your own work. You wanted to start over. Congratulations. Today is day 1. You're starting from 0. Ryan just stared, his mouth opening and closing. No sounds coming out. Gabby was holding her stomach, rocking back and forth, sobbing quietly. I had said everything I needed to say. The negotiation was over. The lesson was just beginning. I turned my back on them. I looked at my lawyer. Amir. I said, my voice crisp and final. Give them the papers and give them my pen. Ryan and Gabby chose path number 2. They didn't really have a choice, did they? It was either prison or it was this. They chose this. Amir was efficient. He didn't just appoint a liquidator for their house, he sent the best. A woman named Maria Sanchez, a shark who doesn't care about market timing or sentimental value. Then I saw the for sale sign go up a week later in their pristine Alpharetta neighborhood. It didn't say open house, it said cash offers only, must close in 10 days. I drove by the following Saturday. I parked my old car across the street just watching. There wasn't a big professional moving van. There was a small rented U-Haul truck parked crookedly in the driveway, the logo peeling off the side. I watched Ryan, my son-in-law, with the MBA hauling a leather sofa out the front door. He wasn't wearing one of his expensive suits. He was wearing old jeans and a t-shirt that was dark with sweat. He stumbled on the stairs. He looked small. He looked weak. And he looked angry. I watched Gabby, my daughter, carrying a cardboard box labeled kitchen. She wasn't crying. Her face was just blank, empty. The vibrant, arrogant, beautifully dressed woman I saw in Amir's conference room was gone. This was just a shell. She didn't look up. She just moved from the house to the truck, one box at a time. The house sold in 3 days. It sold for $300,000, less than the price they had been hoping for. They didn't get to negotiate. A cash offer is a cash offer. Amir handled the closing. The bank got its money first, of course. All the penalties, all the late fees. Then I got mine. A cashier's check for $100,000 was delivered to my apartment by a courier, the exact amount of the down payment I gave them. I looked at it for a long time. It didn't bring me any pleasure. It was just accounting, justice. I put the check in my desk drawer. I would deposit it on Monday. Amir told me that after the bank, the lawyers, and my check, they walked away with exactly $24,000 from a $1.5 million house. That's what was left of their kingdom. I know where they moved. A 2-bedroom apartment complex off I-20, out past Lithonia. The kind of place with peeling beige paint and old cars up on blocks in the parking lot. The kind of place they would have laughed at just 1 month ago. Ryan's BMW was repossessed. I know because I saw him. 2 weeks later, I was getting my tires rotated and I saw him. He was putting one of those magnetic Uber stickers on the side of Gabby's old Honda Civic. The car he used to say was embarrassing. The MBA I paid for, driving for Uber. And Gabby, my daughter. She got a job. I know because I saw her too. I was in a small cafe in Decatur meeting Amir to sign the final papers for the new charitable trust. And I saw her. She was behind the counter. She was wearing a green apron and a little plastic name tag. Her hair was pulled back in a net. She was wiping down the espresso machine. She looked tired, but she also looked focused. She didn't look up. She didn't see me. I finished my coffee, paid my bill, and left. This was their new reality. No more country clubs. No more imported flowers. No more pretending. Just work. The one thing they had tried so hard to avoid. The one thing I had built my entire life on. But the fallout, you see, it wasn't just financial. I had made a promise to Amir. I told him to handle Dr. Evelyn Reed. And Amir is a thorough man. He didn't just call the police. That would have been too simple. He's a lawyer. He understands that real power moves in silence through paperwork. On Monday morning, he filed a formal 100-page complaint with the Georgia Composite Medical Board. He detailed everything: the fraudulent report, the perjury, the lack of a Georgia license. But he didn't stop there. He sent a copy of that entire complaint along with all his evidence to the Alabama Board of Medical Examiners, the ones who had already revoked her license. He informed them very politely that their disgraced doctor was now committing felonies in another state. And then, just to be sure, he sent a third copy to the district attorney's office in Mobile, Alabama, and the DA's office right here in Atlanta. He attached the evidence of her previous conviction for insurance fraud. He attached the petition Ryan and Gabby had filed. He built a case so perfect, so airtight that they couldn't ignore it. It didn't take long. 2 weeks later, Evelyn Reed was arrested. Not quietly. She was arrested at the little wellness clinic she was running out of a strip mall. In front of her patients, she was charged with practicing medicine without a license conspiracy to commit fraud and perjury. They set her bail at $500,000. She couldn't pay it. And here is where the final piece of the trap snapped shut. The Atlanta DA's office, now building their case, looked at the evidence. They saw that Ryan Sullivan was the one who procured the report. He was the one who filed it. He was the co-conspirator. But Evelyn, his cousin, was claiming he was the mastermind. She claimed he coerced her, that he blackmailed her into writing the report, threatening to expose her past if she didn't. So Ryan had a choice. He could go to trial as a co-defendant with his cousin and risk being convicted as the ringleader, or he could accept the DA's offer. He chose the offer. I read the transcript from the hearing. Ryan Sullivan had to stand up in a court of law under oath and testify against his own cousin. He had to tell the entire world on the public record how he had conspired with her to have his senile father-in-law committed. He had to admit in his own words that it was all a lie, that he did it to get his money. He had to say it all just to save himself from a prison sentence. Evelyn Reed was found guilty. The judge, seeing her long history of fraud, was not kind. She'll be in prison for at least 10 years. And Ryan Sullivan, he wasn't charged. He walked free. But he walked out with something worse than a prison record. He walked out as a known perjurer, a man who threw his own family under the bus to save himself. He was free, but his name was toxic. No company in Atlanta, no bank, no financial firm would ever hire him again. He was done, and he had done it all to himself. I went back to Amir's office the following Monday. The air was calm. The battle was over. Now it was time to salt the earth. Amir had the new documents ready, a stack of them thick and heavy. My new last will and testament, a new revocable living trust, a durable power of attorney, a healthcare directive. My old will was simple. It was the one Beatrice and I had written together. It left everything to our only child, Gabrielle. It named her as the executrix of my estate. It named her as my healthcare proxy. It gave her everything, absolutely everything, because we trusted her. We loved her. I watched as Amir took that old will and with a quiet sense of ceremony fed it into the heavy-duty shredder in his office. The machine whined, and just like that, 40 years of trust disappeared into a basket full of confetti. I picked up my pen, the same pen I used to build my company, and I started to sign. I have made some changes, Amir, I had told him over the weekend, and he just nodded. He knew what had to be done. I changed my entire will, my entire legacy. The first change was the most important. I took my $28 million and I took my daughter's name off every single cent of it. 95% of my estate, 95% of everything I have ever built, will now be transferred upon my death into a new entity, the Beatrice Powell Scholarship Fund. My Beatrice. She grew up in Decatur just like I did. She was the first person in her family to go to college. She worked as a public school teacher for 30 years. She believed in education. She believed in lifting people up. She believed that a book and opportunity could change a child's life. My daughter and her husband, they see money as something to spend, something to plug holes with, something to use to buy fancy cars and country club memberships. They see it as a shortcut. But Beatrice and I, we saw it as a tool, something to build with. So that's what I'm going to do. The Beatrice Powell Scholarship Fund will be dedicated in perpetuity to one thing, providing full 4-year scholarships for underprivileged African American students from the Decatur school system. The kids who grow up like I did. The kids who have nothing but drive and a brain. The kids who just need a chance. My money won't be paying for Ryan's next BMW. It will be paying for doctors and engineers and lawyers like Amir. It will be building legacies, real ones, an entire generation of them, all in my wife's name. That was 95%. I know what you're thinking. What about the other 5%? What about my daughter? That's the part that I suppose is the cruelest, or the kindest. I still haven't decided. The remaining 5% of my estate, roughly $1.4 million, will go into a separate trust. It's a generation-skipping trust. It's for my grandchildren, if Gabby and Ryan ever have any. But here are the terms. And Amir made these terms ironclad. He made them out of steel. Gabby and Ryan, my daughter and my son-in-law, can never, ever touch one single penny of it. They are explicitly named in the document as non-beneficiaries. They are explicitly named as non-trustees. They cannot manage the money. They cannot access the money. They cannot borrow against the money. They cannot even smell the money. Amir's firm will manage the trust. It will grow, and it will sit there untouched until any child of Gabrielle's turns 25 years old. At that point, my grandchild can use the money for two things, and two things only: their education or a down payment on their first home. It is the ultimate and final cut. I am providing for my bloodline, but I am bypassing the poison. I am ensuring that my legacy, my work, my wife's memory will pass to the next generation, completely and totally insulated from the greed and failure of this one. They will never see a dime. When I signed the last page, I put the pen down. Amir said, "Gus, are you sure this is final?" I looked out that 40th floor window. I looked down at the city I had helped build. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life, Amir," I said. "They didn't just try to steal my house. They tried to steal my mind. They tried to steal my dignity. They tried to steal my last years on this earth. You don't get to come back from that. You don't get a second chance." My old will was built on love. My new will is built on justice. And justice, I've learned, is a much stronger foundation. It's been 3 months. 3 months since that night in Amir's office. 3 months of a new, strange, heavy silence. I couldn't stay in the apartment. It was too quiet. The walls felt thin. I went back to the house in Decatur, the house I built with Beatrice, the house I raised Gabrielle in. I needed to be around the things that were real, the hardwood floors that creaked under my feet, the smell of old wood and my wife's rose bushes still blooming outside the window. I was in the kitchen. It was a Saturday morning. I was making coffee the same way I have every single morning for 50 years. The old leather-bound book I had bought for Gabby, the one about the history of Atlanta, was sitting on the counter. I was going to donate it to the library. Then the doorbell rang. My heart didn't just jump, it seized. No one just comes to this house anymore. Amir calls first. I wasn't expecting anyone. I walked down the hall, my steps echoing. I looked through the peephole, and my breath caught in my chest. It was her. It was Gabby. I opened the door. She was standing on my porch, alone. And she was different. This wasn't the woman from the lawyer's office. The expensive beige pantsuit was gone. The Italian leather bag was gone. The perfect arrogant mask was gone. She was wearing simple blue jeans, a plain white t-shirt, and a pair of old sneakers. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, no expensive highlights. She looked like the girl I used to know. Before Ryan, before the money. She looked tired, she looked thin, and she looked terrified. "Hi, Dad," she said. Her voice was a whisper. I just looked at her. I didn't speak. I didn't know what to say. What is there to say? "Can I come in?" she asked, her eyes pleading, looking at my feet, not at my face. "Just for a minute." I stepped aside. I didn't say yes. I just moved. She walked past me. I didn't smell expensive perfume. She just smelled like soap. She walked into the living room she grew up in and just stood there. She looked at the old sofa, at her mother's photograph on the mantel. She was clutching a simple canvas tote bag to her chest like a shield. You're living here again," she said. It wasn't a question. "It's my house," I replied. My voice was flat. I wasn't going to make this easy for her. I wasn't going to do anything for her. She nodded, swallowing hard. "Dad, I just wanted you to know." She was looking at her hands now. "I started therapy, like you said. The condition. Path number 2. I watched her. There was no sign of a lie, no performance. She was just stating a fact. And I got a job." She continued, her voice so low I had to strain to hear her. "It's just part-time. Stacking books at the county library. It doesn't pay much. But it's quiet." "And Ryan?" I asked. My voice was cold. She flinched when I said his name. "He's driving, for Uber, at night. We moved, we had to. We're in a small apartment, over in Chambly." I just nodded, once. "Good," I said. That one word. Good. It was all I gave her, and it was like a dam broke. Her face, which had been so tight and controlled, just crumpled. The professional mask, the angry mask, the terrified mask, they all fell away. And she was just Gabby. She started to cry. Not the loud, hysterical, theatrical sobs I heard in Amir's office. These were the other kind. The quiet, broken, ugly, hopeless tears of someone who has truly lost everything. "Dad," she whispered, the tears streaming down her face. "Dad, I'm so sorry." She didn't move toward me. She didn't try to hug me. She just stood there breaking apart in the middle of her childhood living room. "I'm so sorry. I know it's too late. I know I destroyed everything. I know you'll never trust me again. I know what I did." She took a ragged, shaking breath. "I know what he did. And I let him. I went along with it because I was weak, and I was greedy, and I was a horrible, horrible daughter." She was looking at me now, her eyes red and raw. "I just wanted you to hear me say it. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking you to help. I'm not asking for anything. I needed you to know. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry for what I did to you, for what I tried to do." I looked at my daughter, the woman standing in front of me, and I realized I was right. The girl I raised was in there somewhere, buried under all the lies, the debt, the ambition, the weakness. She was still there, and she was right. It was too late. It was too late for the old life. It was too late for the blind trust I used to have. It was too late for the girl who used to sit on my lap and the father who thought she was perfect. That person was gone. That relationship was dead. The shredder in Amir's office had taken care of that. I didn't hug her. I didn't say, "It's okay." I didn't say, "I forgive you," because I didn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I just looked at her standing there shaking, waiting for me to throw her out. I turned. I walked past her to the kitchen. I picked up the old coffee pot. "Sit down, Gabby," I said. She looked up, her eyes wide and confused. "What?" I said, "Sit down." I gestured to the old kitchen table, the one where she used to do her homework. "This is going to take a long time." I took down a second coffee mug from the hook, the one that used to be Beatrice's. "Let's talk," I said, my voice rough. "We have a lot of things to talk about from the beginning." The final lesson I learned is this: true wealth isn't what you have in the bank. It's the character you've built. Money, I've found, doesn't change people. It just reveals who they truly were all along. My family saw my humility as weakness and my simplicity as poverty. They thought my love was a blank check they could cash. But love without respect is just a transaction. I learned that you must never be afraid to set a boundary, even if it means tearing your whole world down. Sometimes the only way to save yourself is to finally show the people who underestimated you exactly who you are. What would you have done in my position? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories just like this one.